My brother made me suffer my entire childhood while he was my parents' favorite. Now that they disinherited him, he came crying, begging me to give my daughter the family name. But I slammed the door in his face and left them all broken. I'm 28 years old. I live in California with my husband Matthew, and I'm 5 months pregnant. I should be happy, right? And I am. I mean, I'm excited about this baby. But like 2 weeks ago, my brother Benjamin showed up at my door unannounced, crying, begging me to give my unborn son our family's last name so our parents wouldn't disinherit him. And that's when I realized that no matter how far I run, no matter how many years go by without talking to them, these people are always going to find a way to try to ruin my life. But for you to understand why this is so fucking absurd, I need to tell you the whole story from the beginning. And trust me, it's a long story. I was born in Illinois into a family that basically never wanted me. And I don't say that dramatically like, oh, my parents were strict. No, they literally never wanted me. My Aunt Elizabeth told me years ago, when I was like 22, that my mom wanted to abort when she found out I was a girl. Apparently, my parents already had Benjamin, who was 2 at the time, and my mom wanted another boy. She was obsessed with having only sons. I don't know. Like we were in medieval times or something. When the ultrasound showed I was a girl, my mom told the doctor she wanted to terminate the pregnancy. My dad convinced her not to. Because, what would they say at church? Not because he actually wanted me, but because he was worried about his image. So, I was born. And from that moment, I was the living reminder of a disappointment. Growing up in that house was basically like being a ghost that everyone could see but preferred to ignore. Benjamin was the center of the universe, the golden child, the perfect prince who could do whatever he wanted. He had his own giant room with all the toys he asked for, a new computer every year, classes for everything, sports, expensive summer camps, everything. I shared a tiny room with the Christmas boxes and my mom's old clothes until I was 12, and they finally gave me the guest room, but only because my grandmother stopped visiting us. My mom bought me clothes at thrift stores but bought Benjamin everything new. In family photos, Benjamin was always in front with my parents smiling, and I was like in the corner or wasn't in the photo at all. But the worst part wasn't just the difference in treatment. It was that Benjamin knew exactly how much power he had and used it to make my life impossible. When we were like 10 and 12, he started breaking his own things and then blaming me. He'd break his video games, his toys, whatever, and then cry saying I had done it. My parents always believed him. Once he broke his Xbox, literally threw it on the floor himself. I saw him. And my parents punished me for 3 months. They took away my birthday that year. Can you believe it? No party, no cake, nothing. Benjamin ate cake that night while I was grounded in my room. And he looked at me with that smile. I can still see when I close my eyes that I won again. Smile. It kept going like that for years. Benjamin sabotaged my homework, hid my books, stole the money I earned doing jobs for neighbors, and every time I tried to say something, my parents said I was being dramatic or jealous. My mom always said Benjamin would never do something like that. Stop making up stories for attention. But the truth is, I didn't want their attention. I just wanted them to leave me alone. I spent most of my teenage years at the public library, studying, reading, anything to not be in that house. I became really good at school because it was literally the only thing I had. You know? My grades were perfect. I participated in all the clubs, did community service, everything. My parents never went to a single parent-teacher meeting, never saw a single one of my school presentations. But they went to all of Benjamin's soccer games even though he was on the bench half the time. And when I was 17, I applied to universities in California because I wanted to be as far away from Illinois as possible. I got a full scholarship to a decent university in the San Francisco area, and honestly, it was the best day of my life when I got that acceptance letter. I showed it to my parents at dinner and my dad barely looked up from his plate. He said, "Well, I hope you know we're not paying for anything." And my mom added, "California is very far. You're going to be alone there." Benjamin said something like, "Why would you want to go so far? Don't you like family?" With that fake voice he used when he wanted to play the victim. I explained that I had a full scholarship, that I didn't need their money. And my dad just said, "Then go ahead." There was no celebration. There was nothing. 2 weeks later, they bought Benjamin a new car as an early graduation gift. I left for California 3 days after graduating high school with 2 suitcases and $800 I'd saved working at Subway. The first years in California were hard but amazing at the same time. I worked like 3 part-time jobs while studying, slept like 5 hours a night, ate a lot of ramen and rice, but I was free. I didn't have to deal with Benjamin destroying my things or my parents telling me I was a disappointment. I met Matthew in my second year of college, in a history class. He was kind, funny, and when I told him about my family eventually, after months of dating, because I was embarrassed, he just hugged me and said his family would be my family now. And he meant it. His parents treated me better at our first Christmas dinner than my own parents treated me in my entire life. His mom bought me an ugly Christmas sweater, and his dad joked with me about my major, like he actually cared. It was weird at first. Honestly, I wasn't used to people being genuinely interested in me. I kept minimal contact with my family during college. I'd send occasional messages like, "All good, hope you are too," but they almost never responded. When I graduated with honors, my parents didn't come to the ceremony. They said the trip was too expensive, and besides, it's not that important. It's just college. Benjamin had dropped out of college after a year because it wasn't his thing, but my parents had paid for that entire year, like $40,000 thrown away, and they never said anything to him. When I graduated, Matthew's family flew from Illinois. Yes, they're also from Illinois. How ironic. To be there. They bought me flowers, we took pictures, went to a nice restaurant for dinner. Matthew's mom cried during my graduation speech. My own parents didn't even send me a congratulations message. So Matthew and I started building our life in California. I got a good job in marketing. Matthew worked at an accounting firm. We saved money, adopted a cat, normal young adult life. When we'd been dating for 3 years, Matthew proposed to me on a beach at sunset. Super cliche, but beautiful. I was so happy that I made the mistake of sending a message to my family group chat, announcing my engagement. My mom responded, "Okay," after 2 days. My dad didn't respond at all. Benjamin sent a "congrats, I guess," like 5 days later. None of them asked about the wedding, about Matthew, about anything. Matthew's mom, on the other hand, called me crying with excitement like 2 minutes after Matthew told her and wanted to know all the details. We decided to get married in California because, well, we lived there and our whole life was there. I sent invitations to my parents and Benjamin with like 6 months' notice. The month before the wedding, my mom called me and told me they weren't going to come because it's too expensive, and besides, Benjamin thinks you're being ungrateful by getting married so far from family. Like you don't want us there. I asked her, "Does Benjamin think that, or do you think that?" And she got defensive, saying Benjamin was right, that if I really wanted them there, I would have gotten married in Illinois. I told her I'd been living in California for almost 10 years at that point, that my entire life was there, that Matthew's family lived in Illinois and they were flying to be at the wedding. She said, "Well, they'll have their money, but we can't afford that luxury," which was a lie because my dad ran a car dealership and they were doing very well. I hung up the phone and cried for hours. Matthew hugged me and told me his family was my family and that our wedding was going to be perfect without them. And he was right. We got married in May 2020, right before everything went crazy with the pandemic. We were lucky with that at least. It was a small wedding, like 50 people, at a beautiful vineyard. Matthew's family was there, my college friends, some work colleagues, and it was perfect. There was no drama. There was nobody telling me I was a disappointment. Just love and people who genuinely were happy for us. Matthew's dad walked me down the aisle because my own father wasn't there, and I'm not going to lie. I cried through the entire ceremony. After the wedding, I blocked my family on social media because I didn't want them to see photos of my happy day. It sounded petty, but it made me feel good, About 2 years went by without much contact. I'd send messages for Christmas and birthdays, but they barely responded. Meanwhile, I found out from my cousin Hannah, the only person in my family who still talked to me because she always thought my parents were horrible to me, that my parents had paid for Benjamin's entire wedding. Not just the wedding, a giant wedding with like 300 guests at a super fancy place, but they also bought him a house. A complete house, like $350,000, as a wedding gift. Hannah sent me photos and videos of the wedding. It was ridiculous how extravagant everything was. Giant gold balloons, a 5-tier cake, live band, everything. And Benjamin married Lauren, a girl who seemed pretty normal, honestly. and I felt a little sorry for her because I knew she was getting into that family without really knowing what they were like. The thing is that after Benjamin's wedding, Hannah started sending me updates more often because something weird was happening. Apparently, my parents were obsessed with Benjamin and Lauren giving them grandchildren. Like, they mentioned grandchildren at every family dinner, constantly asked when they were going to start having babies. My mom even bought baby clothes and saved them for when my grandson arrives. Hannah told me Lauren looked super uncomfortable every time the topic came up, but Benjamin just laughed and said, "It'll happen. Give them time." A year went by, 2 years, and nothing. My parents started getting more insistent, more desperate. My mom would ask Lauren if she was doing everything necessary, and my dad told Benjamin that a real man would already have a son at his age. Hannah told me things got really tense at family dinners. Apparently, Lauren and Benjamin were fighting a lot, and my parents weren't helping at all with their constant pressure. I honestly wasn't thinking much about it. I had my own life. I was happy with Matthew. We'd just bought our own house with our money, without anyone's help, and we were considering starting our own family. And then, like 6 months ago, Hannah called me with a big update. Benjamin and Lauren had gone to the doctor and found out Benjamin has severe fertility issues. Something about low sperm count and other medical problems. I don't remember all the technical details, but basically they told him the chances of being able to have biological children were almost none. They could try treatments, but they were super expensive and didn't guarantee anything. According to Hannah, when my parents found out, they went crazy. My mom apparently cried for days, not because she felt sorry for Benjamin, but because she was devastated about not being able to have biological grandchildren with their last name. My dad started talking about family legacy and how the family line was going to end with Benjamin. They stopped being affectionate with Benjamin almost immediately, like he no longer had value to them because he couldn't give them what they wanted. Hannah said it was horrible to watch, that my parents basically ignored Benjamin at family dinners, and that my mom had started saying things like, "Why did we buy them a house if they're not even going to fill it with grandchildren?" Lauren was dealing with all this while also processing the news about the infertility, and Hannah thought they were probably going to divorce soon because of all the pressure. Things got worse when my dad told Benjamin that if he didn't fix the situation, they were going to cut off all the financial support they gave him. And yes, after years of being married, my parents still paid for things for Benjamin, like his car, his insurance, even part of his monthly expenses. Benjamin was 30 years old and still financially dependent on our parents because he never had to learn to fend for himself. My dad gave him an ultimatum: "Find a way to give me a grandchild with our last name, or I'll cut you off completely." And that's when Benjamin, in his desperation, decided I was the solution to his problem. 2 weeks ago, I was at home editing some work materials when I heard the doorbell. Matthew was at work, so I went to open it, and there was Benjamin, at my door, in California, literally thousands of miles from where he was supposed to be. I hadn't seen him in person in like 8 years. He looked terrible, honestly, like he hadn't slept in days. He had huge dark circles and was disheveled. I stood there in shock for a moment before asking him what the hell he was doing there. He started crying, just like that, tears running down his face, and said, "Charlotte, I need your help. Please, I have nobody else." I let him in because, I don't know, I guess part of me still felt something for him, despite everything he did to me. He was my brother, technically, even though he never acted like one. He sat in my living room and started telling me everything. About his infertility, about how our parents were treating him now, about how they were going to take everything away. I just listened, not saying anything, waiting for him to get to the point. And then he said it. He asked me that when my baby was born. Yes, he knew I was pregnant because Hannah probably told him to give it our family's last name instead of Matthew's last name. He said that way our parents would think the baby was part of the family legacy and would leave him alone. I sat there, processing what I'd just heard, and honestly, I didn't know whether to laugh or yell at him. I asked him if he was fucking crazy, if he really thought I was going to give the last name of the family that treated me like trash my entire life to my child. I told him, "Benjamin. Mom and Dad didn't come to my wedding. They didn't talk to me for years. You made my life impossible during my entire childhood, and now you want me to use my baby to fix your problems with them? Really?" He kept crying and saying he understood, that he knew he'd been horrible to me but that he'd changed, that he was so sorry for everything. I asked him, "Are you sorry or do you just need something from me?" And he didn't know how to answer. Then he started begging, literally on his knees in my living room, saying that if I didn't do this, our parents were going to disinherit him, that he was going to lose everything, that Lauren would probably leave him. I told him maybe he should have thought about that before spending years being their puppet and treating me like shit. I reminded him of all the times he broke my things and blamed me, all the times he stole money from me, all the times he convinced our parents I was the problem. I said, "Do you remember when you broke your Xbox and they punished me for 3 months? Do you remember that smile you had? I never forgot it, Benjamin. And now you, come here." After years of not talking to me, asking me to solve your problems. He tried to say he was just a kid back then, that he didn't understand what he was doing. But I interrupted him. I told him he was 12, 13, 14 years old enough to know what he was doing was wrong. I told him he enjoyed making me suffer because he knew he could get away with it. And now that his golden parents were treating him the way they always treated me, he wanted me to save him. I told him no, that my answer was no, that my child was going to have Matthew's last name because Matthew was a good man who loved and respected me, and that our family, Matthew and I, had nothing to do with them. Benjamin got up and started getting aggressive. Not physically, but with his tone. He said I was being selfish, that it was just a last name, that it cost me nothing to do him this favor. I told him it cost me my dignity. It cost me the peace I'd built away from them. It cost me the family I'd formed with Matthew. I told him to get out of my house and never come back. He kept yelling as he walked toward the door, saying I was going to regret it, that I was a bad person, all those things. I pushed him out. Literally. I pushed him and closed the door. I sat on the floor of my living room and cried, not for him, but because I realized I was never going to be able to completely escape these people. 2 days later, Hannah sent me a message saying my parents had followed through on their threat and cut Benjamin off financially. They took away his car, stopped paying his insurance, everything. Benjamin apparently had an emotional breakdown, and Lauren finally had enough and went to her parents' house. My parents, instead of recognizing they were the ones who had created this whole mess, decided I was the villain. My mom called me. "You don't know how she got my new number," probably Hannah, and started yelling at me, telling me I was a horrible daughter, that Benjamin had come to me asking for help and I rejected him. I told her, "Where were you when I needed help? When I needed someone to defend me from Benjamin? When I needed someone to come to my graduation? To my wedding?" She said that was different, that I had chosen to leave, but Benjamin really needed help now. I asked her if she really didn't see the irony in all of this, in how now that Benjamin couldn't give them what they wanted, they were treating him the way they always treated me. I told her, maybe now she understood a little how I felt my entire life. She got hysterical, yelling that I was always a difficult child, that I always caused problems, that she had tried to love me, but I made it impossible. I told her, "Mom, you wanted to abort me because I wasn't the boy you expected. You never intended to love me," and hung up. She kept calling for hours, but I didn't answer. Eventually, I blocked her number too. My dad called me from another phone a few days later with a different approach. He tried the "let's be reasonable" path, saying he understood we had problems in the past, but that family was important, that the family name was a legacy that should continue. I told him his legacy was one of favoritism, manipulation, and emotional abuse, and that I didn't want any of that for my child. He said, I was being dramatic, that all parents have favorites, but that didn't mean they didn't love me. I told him actions speak louder than words and that his actions for 28 years had made it very clear I never mattered. I told him my child was going to grow up in a house where they were loved unconditionally, where they didn't have to compete for attention, where they didn't have to be perfect to be valued. And that house didn't include any of them. My dad tried to threaten me, saying something about inheritances and family money. But I told him I never expected anything from them and that I'd built my life without their help. I reminded him I left for California with $800 and graduated with honors while working 3 jobs, that Matthew and I had bought our own house, that I'd never asked them for anything. Their money was never mine and I never wanted it. He was quiet for a moment and then said, "You're going to regret this someday," before hanging up. I blocked him too. Now, Hannah keeps me updated because she rents a room at my parents' house. She needed a cheap place while studying for her master's, and my parents offered her a good price, though now I wonder if it was to have someone to report to them about me. She told me the house is total chaos. My parents are bitter. Benjamin is desperate looking for work because he never developed real skills since he always had everything paid for, and Lauren officially filed divorce papers. My parents blame everything on Lauren, saying she should have been more understanding of Benjamin's medical condition. But Hannah says Lauren basically told them to fuck off and that she wasn't going to be part of that toxic family ever again. Honestly, good for her. Matthew has been incredible through all this. He hugs me when I cry, reminds me I made the right decision, tells me our baby is going to have the family they deserve. His parents have also been super supportive. His mom calls me every week to see how I am and to send me pictures of baby clothes she's been buying. This is what family should be. People who love you without conditions, who celebrate your achievements, who are there in good and bad times. A few days ago, we had the ultrasound where they told us we're having a girl. Matthew cried with happiness, and so did I, but for different reasons. I cried because this girl is never going to feel unwanted, is never going to wonder why her brother is more loved, is never going to grow up feeling like a mistake. She's going to have a dad who adores her and a mom who will do everything possible to give her the childhood I never had. And she's going to have Matthew's last name, the last name of a good man, not the last name of a family that values legacies over people. I don't regret telling Benjamin no. I don't regret blocking my parents. I've spent too many years of my life trying to earn the love of people who were never willing to give it. This girl growing inside me deserves better than that, and so do I. Sometimes it still hurts. I'm not going to lie. There are still moments when I wish I had normal parents who were excited about their first granddaughter. But then I remember, family isn't always blood. Family is the people you choose, the people who choose you, the people who are there when it really matters. And that family, my real one, is here in California, waiting to meet our little girl in a few months.